Welcome to the Tech Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Vincent, and on this podcast, I interview people in tech. As always, this show is sponsored by the consulting launch method, where I help experienced tech professionals build their own consulting businesses without spending years figuring out the business side alongside their day job. And we've helped clients go from first client to first clients in 90 days and to six figures within a year. To learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. On today's show, our guest is Tudor Stoicescu. He is staff product manager at Entrust, where he's the product line director for the identity management portfolio. So, Tudor, welcome to the show. I wanted to ask you a question that I always love to start with. Looking back at your career, what is the decision or project that you're most proud of, and what made it stand out for you?
First off, thanks for having me on, Vincent. It's a pleasure to be here. Good question. I think, weirdly enough, still, my favorite and most proudest moment in my career is the pivotal project that shifted my career over. So I started early on in financial services, working my way up from customer services representative, fraud analyst, credit analyst, etc. Had quite a few jobs in American Express early on to working within the legal team. I'd spotted a gap in the market of a tool that could provide good compliance intelligence and horizon scanning to payments firms in particular, or other niche financial services players, as most of the tools in the industry and were either very, very much publication style or very much catered towards big banks. So I found the company called Payments Compliance at the time. Now they're known as Vixio, which was trying to sell us essentially a tool that did this. I became very close to their senior leadership team and decided to make a jump to them to build out a product to solve this need for as many companies as we could find. It was quite good for me from a product sense perspective because I was the client. I had experienced the needs firsthand, so I had a very clear idea in my head, even as young as I was, around 25-ish or something like that, about what I wanted to get out of it. So I think I'm mostly proud of it because I had the courage to do that, and probably the unhinged youth and energy to jump that way. It basically, two things happened. One is we successfully grew that from a $0 business to a 2 million business within a year and a half, which was quite big for the business considering the scale at the time. We signed some early deals which I had early involvement in, and it taught me so much about both product and how to work with people. And I think that's why I think it's my proudest moment, not necessarily because of the financial impacts, because I've built bigger, better products over the years after as I got better. But I think it's more the emotional and mental remembrance of what it took to make that jump and just try and risk it, and that it was just so pivotal for my long-term career and just how I developed as a human.
Yeah, interesting observation about the career pivot. So, is that where you with and trust you are in a particular role? So, but you had your own business before. So, I mean, what made you make that sort of change or transition?
I'm still technically doing the side business at times. It's just I'm more focused on being selective about clients I picked out. So I'm currently doing two things. So the main thing is the job I do with Entrust, where I basically make sure we can compliantly expand our products across the EMEA region, and I focus on working with key customer accounts, building the right product stack, etc., running audits like crazy. I'm just preparing for my fifth one in just a little over a year, so it's quite intense from that side. On the other side with the business, I did full-time consulting for a period of time when the product market was experiencing essentially a mini downturn. And I said, look, I can't just sit down and wait for jobs to come. So I was like, let's just try something with the brain I already have and the experience I have. So currently, I think I'm in a phase where I'm still helping some smaller startups with advisory work and some product consulting going in. It's more of a question, as Revolut likes to put it, the taste matter of a PM. Like, you just go to a startup and advise them on how to structure something that's based around the important problems of a customer rather than just trying to ship features. So it's very much, for me, I enjoyed that scarcity game and that, resource management game where you've got very little and you have to get as much as you can out of that. Plus, it's just fun to work with smaller teams. And I'm currently in a phase where even with Entrust, I'm still learning and growing and developing stuff, looking at how to, function and operate at large scales. But probably long term, I still have this instinct to make that other thing bigger. It's just right now I'm enjoying the duality of both honing the craft and becoming a better product manager, but also just being able to help out the startup community and just like find cool projects to support. It's a lot of work. It spends a lot of time, but to me right now it's worth it and I still have the energy. So I guess, not being a father yet helps because I've got the spare time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how do you manage that time, and how do you separate between the two kind of?
So two rules. Rule number one is basically I only take on as much as I can at any single point in time, and I try to dedicate. Like I'm trying to be upfront with my clients and say, look, you're gonna get that max 5 to 10 hours a week out of me. So use me only if you genuinely need key strategic pinpoint advice. I think the best way to pitch myself is more like a CPO for hire, where you just give me the problem, give me your business. I can help from everything to do sales meetings, to speak to investors, to help fundraisers, etc. Just because I've had experience across the spectrum. So I kind of just position myself as, look, I'm the senior operator who knows what to do. I can get my hands dirty and sit down with the engineers and the customers and just, disentangle the problem and just make sure the engineers have the guidance they need. And I quite enjoy that. But there's rule one is just be upfront about time commitments and be sure I can meet them. And if, right now I've got a busy audit season. So for the next 2 months, I'm off the market in terms of those services purely because of the work that's going on. I've already shared this with some of the people I've been working on. But I'll probably be back active, October, November time, and then take another break over the Christmas, New Year period. So it's more like, I'd say 4 months a year, I do some part-time support, usually for people I know well or people that get referred to me. The other rule is to make sure I always take projects which are as connected to my experience as possible, but as wildly disconnected to my current role as possible. So let's say if I was working as a KYC screening product manager, or if I was working in the identity space or stuff like that, I would pick anything other than those kinds of topics at the time. So it's usually fun that way because I get to exercise the product muscle either in slightly new areas like, vehicle rental or, construction worker software, etc., like some of the projects I've done in the past. But it's also good just to have a broader view of the world as a PM, because you can take learnings from different sectors into your day job as well.
Absolutely. I do agree that transfer across. And actually, one of the reasons why I love doing the job I do is because I also learn the product muscle across different technical spectrums myself with the clients I work with. But now, I think a question that some of the people listening may have is, how do you manage or your current employer, your current employer doesn't mind that you do that you have a side business that is maybe not directly conflicting, but it's still maybe encroaching a little bit on what they do?
First of all, it was disclosure. Second of all, is that during my working hours and working times for Entrust, that takes priority no matter what. So the availability, the presence, I deliver everything I'm asked to do, and I make sure that that's all performing well. So I think because of the side business still being active and the fact that I've been running it for so long, I've got the comfort of been knowing how to manage my time because it's been already almost 4 years.
Yeah.
But I think more critical is, and this is probably advice for anybody who wants to go down this route, don't skimp on your responsibilities to your main job. Don't think if you have an extra moment, use it for the side thing. That's not my advice because the perception could be misconstrued as quite wrong. It's just use your free time. Budget, 3 hours on a Saturday, 3 hours on a Sunday, or whatever. Like, just be prepared to make those commitments. Be prepared to do that. Let's say you finish work at 5:30, take a break, have some dinner, chill out, relax, do an hour or two. That's why I said basically I plan it around 5 to 10 hours because it literally leads to like an hour in the evenings and 3, 4, 5 hours on the weekends. Plus, sometimes I just take days off from work. Like if I've got a very big project, probably not the best way to tell people you use your PTO, but sometimes I do it to do customer visits or to do travel for work on the side business. So it's more like that's been managed. And I think as long as you establish trust with your employer, those first 6 months of probation, don't do other projects or stuff like that unless you can genuinely manage it. Just be the best you can at your day job, be relevant, be needed, be seen as a trusted party. Trust is just built implicitly that way.
Yeah. No, I recognize it. Thank you so much. Now, if you're starting your tech career again tomorrow, and I know obviously you have a bit slightly different background than some people in tech, but knowing what you know now with all the changes in tech, the transitions that are happening, AI, whatever else, what is the one thing that you would do differently?
Funnily enough, particularly because of what I said, I would have learned how to do marketing and sales better sooner. And I did recently a talk about this, both at the Unchained Festival and at a little cybersecurity meetup we ran in Romania a couple of weeks back. I basically sat there in front of a bunch of very technically minded people and developers and cybersecurity, mega geeks, which I respect deeply for how good they are, and talked to them and said, I know you all feel you're right. I know you all are technically correct, but you need to find a way to get people to buy into this in a way in which they can understand. So I think that's business-minded translation layer, thinking more like the buyer, the CEO, the CFO, whatever. Being technically agile and skilled is something you can develop with time anyway. And especially if you have the interest in it, it just happens naturally. What happened to me? Heck, I enjoyed programming from a young age. I decided to do law school for reasons, including the fact that I just wanted to pivot more away from being in front of a computer all day. I still had that pull towards the technical thing. So I don't think you have to sacrifice technical literacy and expertise. But I think, especially with what's happening with AI, especially with the fact that the barrier to entry from a build perspective is being lowered. I don't think it's going away, by the way. I think you still need experts who know how to secure things, how to build them up. But that part of selling an idea, that part of understanding why somebody would buy your service, I think shortcuts a lot of the difficulty both product managers who are experts in a field or product managers who are very technical could overcome. And I think it just applies to everybody. If you're everything from a developer to a PM to a CEO to whatever, finding a better way to sell, as upsetting as it can sound for most people when you say, oh, sales.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it just helps you build that connection and report to your customer and actually build the right thing. So see it more not as a exercise in being the sleazeball who sells products. See it more as an exercise of finding a deeper connection with the customer and actually building the right things up front rather than having to iterate more times than you need to.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the main things I do with my clients, because all my clients have a tech background. They're very strong technically, but they are not confident on the marketing and sales side. I mean, how do I get clients and how do I have a conversation and things like this? So I help with role plays and things like this. So, but anyway, let me digress slightly. Great answer. Love that. Thank you. Now, finally, obviously you've already had quite a sort of interesting career so far, but what does the next chapter of your career look like for you?
Oh, it's a difficult thing to call out because I'll say that the main word of advice I'd give to summarize my career is just be open to any opportunity to come very much from where you do not expect it and for it to open up new doors. I've tried a lot of things. I've been in a lot of fields and areas. I've met a lot of people along the way. So for now, I think my main focus is twofold. It's one, delivering some very cool high level projects with Entrust. And I think what this job is giving me now is exposure to even levels as high as some national governments, very high value customers and banks, and like just being able to almost influence the direction of travel of both technology and a little bit regulation, I'd say, because I'm being more I'm participating more heavily, for example, in the TSI standards organization. I've met a bunch of regulators in financial services and data protection and stuff like that relate. I think getting that exposure and that context kind of tickles the lawyer in me a little bit and saying, like, okay, how do you actually properly legislate technology? Because usually lawyers aren't technologists and vice versa, so it's quite difficult to talk. So I think I see a position for myself where I could become more of a translation layer between the two. And then longer term, I do want to build my own things. I do want to kind of try my hand at multiple types of businesses. I think there is an instinct to try something that's also more simple, like more boring businesses that just, can become profitable and quiet in the background. The main reason for that is a freedom play. I don't think I qualify as the type of person who's usually, as the influencer would say, be a millionaire and then party hard. It's more like if I could achieve financial freedom with all the stuff that I run on the side, it just means I'd be free to work on the projects that excite me a lot exclusively. And not being tied down to me is basically the place I want to get to. I think I got an early taste with it through running my consultancy now in the last few years
Yep.
of like wanting to just be able to just drop in and, go maybe to some venture funded startups and stuff like that and just say, look, let me take a look at it and fix your portfolio and find, where the issues are. I tend to be quite good at, taking someone's idea and making it something that can be sold and repeatably scaled. Uh, Probably not as strong as figuring out the wild left field ideas, but sometimes you need the operator who can just facilitate the transformation or can just give you the hard feedback of this is never going to work this way. So I think it's just moving towards that progressively and finding a way to do it sustainably and scalably. But that doesn't mean I want to kind of necessarily move out of what I'm doing now. It's more I want to maximize the time I have. That's probably advice for everybody. Wherever you are in a job, find ways to use that as a crutch to get more exposure and try to think outside of the box of what your current area is and just learn more from other people and other, people in the industry.
Very exciting. And what are the type of projects that excite you?
Genuinely speaking, uh, it's usually stuff that's more the hidden things that power society or technology. So I like to think, for example, that in the new AI world, there's this whole play on agents and how great AI is going to be, etc. I've been working with AI for almost 10 years now. It's not magic. It's math that can run a little faster because we've got hardware that can run it semi-scalably. As people would have seen with the recent usage limits and stuff, we're kind of reaching the point of financial sensibility and for it to make sense. But I think the point with agentic is they're essentially superscripts that can run in loops and just execute more complicated workflows, and they can be talked to in inverted commas in more human language, right? What do they need? They need data, they need context, they need information. To me, the projects that are exciting me right now is projects where you look at how complex businesses run and you turn processes, ideas, decision criteria, etc., into data and then feed them to these models. It's basically what I've almost been working on exclusively for the last 6-7 years, more or less. It's just this space keeps evolving. And ironically enough, the basics of just building that, rocket fuel that will power the next level of automation, that's always been the part that excites me because it's very few people who focus on it. And I think it's just a niche that I like getting stuck into because, look, the reason I did laws, I like to understand how humans and societies work. The reason I got into coding and programming is because I wanted to understand how computers work. So for me, it's basically how do organizations work? How do you turn them into data? And then can you use that data to create automations and new ideas on top? Purely to be able to free up humans to do more high value work. That's essentially the way I see this.
That's it. Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast today, Tudor. The best way for people to get in touch with you, presumably, is through LinkedIn.
Yes. Yes. So Tudor Stoicescu, you'll find me on LinkedIn. Entrust and Innovated are my companies. And yeah, happy to have conversations with anybody if they're curious to geek out about product or they need any advice on, how to turn an idea into something that can scale.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And as a reminder to everyone listening, the show is sponsored by the Consulting Launch Method, where I help experienced tech professionals build their own consulting businesses without spending years figuring out the business side and doing it next to the day job if they choose to. we've helped clients go from first idea to first client in 90 days and 6 figures within a year. To learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn or send me a message. Until the next episode. Thank you, Tudor.
Thanks so much, Vincent.